All right. So,
Having the morning coffee.
so my late night right now.
Yeah, it's like 1 a.m. on your time.
All
12,
right,
it's midnight, right?
12 right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
12 midnight. Wow, it's late.
Thanks for being in this interview. I'm very happy to be able to talk to you. This is like it's a very cool opportunity for me. So I have this question. I have this 8 questions for you, and the first one
Okay.
goes like this. First one goes like this: How does it feel to be playing with one of the greatest guitarists, of today?
Well, it's a fact that's not lost on me. Sometimes I have to kind of pinch myself because I look out and I see. Well, first of all, knowing Paul's catalog and his the things that he's done over the years, he's most certainly he's definitely one of the top 10 guitar players, and not just because of his playing, but he's also just one of the nicest humans I think I've ever encountered in my entire life. He's just so cool. He's a very nice man, and he's that being said, it makes playing with him so much more deep and fun because you know what you're getting, and he's the same person on stage as he is off stage. And I've worked with a lot of different people who they get on stage and they become this other sort of entity, and they've got this almost a mask that they wear. And if you could look at the mask that Paul wears is the goofy guitar faces, all that stuff.
Yeah.
that's entirely the person that you're getting. He's one of the funnest people I've ever hung out with, and several times a year now I've had the opportunity to live as a roommate with him on a tour bus, and I look forward to every time that we do it. And so that being said, I know the shoes that I'm having to fill as a performer. So just the fact that I'm playing with Paul, I can look out in the audience and see like 4 or 5 drummers who are, they're kind of eyeballing me. And I approach his gig sort of in a different convention because most of his drummers have always been of the double bass drum player variety. Yeah. And I tried the double bass drum pedal on the United States tour, but I found that it's really not my thing. I'm a single bass drummer, and I like that because it makes me have to dig deeper for things that I want to perform and pull off. So I use a smaller kit. Obviously, I use the 1 rack tom and the 2 floor toms, and I would use more cymbals, but it's easier for me to not have to pay extra money to take a big pile of cymbals to wherever it is that I'm going. Yeah, so I just use a smaller kit, and I think Paul kind of likes that because he's getting more into a blues-based situation. He's exploring the blues deeper right now than I think he ever has in his life. He's kind of going back to the roots of rock and roll, and blues are certainly that. Jazz and blues are certainly where rock and roll was born. So yeah.
That's very nice to hear, because I guess there are a lot of drummers who attend all this kind of concert to see what it is to take to be part of Paul's band as well. I see. So I see that it's like 26 cities, 13 countries for the last leg of the tour, right?
Yeah, there was 26 cities and 13 countries in 34 days. That was a whoo, man. Some of those, that's the thing, that how well can you perform over, like a stretch of say 9 nights on? Because once you hit about night 5, you're freaking toast, man. You're like, oh my God, got to go do it again. And then we've got 4 more dates to do, after, tonight. And that's really kind of a grind. And so, bringing a consistency to his project and being able to go up every night and kind of, put everything that, any physical ailments or, several times, well, several people on the tour the past run kind of got befallen with a bit of a chest cold. And if you watch some of the videos with Paul, he had a real deep voice. It was because he was really affected with a cold. He couldn't sing or anything, and he had to go sort of into a different space to be able to pull off the things that he does. But yeah, it's just about getting out and being able to just deliver what we do, because the crowd doesn't care if you're sick. They're there for one thing, and they want their minds blown, and so you have to go and do it.
Yeah, delivering the consistency, right?
Consistency, it's very important. I used to work with a man named Ike Turner. I don't know if you know that name or not. He kind of got a bad rap because of a movie that came out about him, but he is the father of rock and roll. He was he wrote the first rock and roll record called Rocket 88, and I played with him from 2001 to 2007. And so as far as being exposed to great guitar players, I've had my share of amazing players that I've gotten a chance to work with, and a lot of the things that I learned from Ike, I brought that over into the Paul gig, because how could you not? It's all pretty much the training that you receive, and if you treat every gig like training, no matter what kind of gig it is, if it's just playing in a club down the street 5 nights a week or whatever, that's kind of a training ground for a young musician, and there's an ethic that you develop. You show up every night and you have a good attitude and play congruently to the room and to the crowd and to whomever is there listening. And that's those situations that you find yourself in, even if it's just a really kind of a sucky gig, where you're not having any fun. Well, just make it look like you're having fun, because you're not going to be there, for too long. You're going to be there for at least, a couple of hours. And so just make it look like you're having fun and leave people with that memory. That's a bit of advice I could give, just on the fly here.
I think about not having fun in the gig. We've been all of us must have been there some point of time.
Yeah, there's a saying that goes, we don't have any fun, but we make a lot of money. Oh, no, wait. It's the other way around.
Yeah.
We don't make a lot of money, but yeah, so that's kind of the way that could happen.
I feel like you've jumped ahead of you've predicted what I want to ask you, because my next question was basically what did you do or what you did to land yourself in this gig. So I think you already shared a little bit about Rocket 88, right? That's like,
yeah, that's that Rocket 88. That goes way back in my history and my timeline. I just and jumping ahead, I'm sorry if I do that, because one of the things that being a musician you develop over a period of your lifetime is not just your ability to play mechanics on an instrument, with drumsticks, playing the mechanical moves, but what you also do is you develop your mind and your ability to link up with whomever it is that you're playing with. Music is a conversation. It's not a competition. So when you're on stage playing music together, you're basically feeling each other out, and say, like, you might do a run and I'll catch the tail end of that run, and it makes it sound like we rehearsed it. And it's just a matter of opening yourself up and being empathetic to that other person. And I think that as we grow as musicians, your sense of empathy and sensitivity towards other people's mindsets is one of those things that gets better. So mind reading is almost a skill mind reading is a skill that will develop itself as you continue to play music. It's just, you'll learn, where someone else's thought processes are going. But getting back to that question about preparing for Paul's gig, let me just kind of tell you what happened. I took a gig at a guitar camp. It was called Guitar Workshop Plus. And I was the drum instructor on that guitar camp. And one of the things that my job was to instruct the drummers. I only had one drummer show up to the camp, so she and I, it was this young woman, we just hung out and played drums and talked about drums and went into the whole philosophy of things. I have sort of an interesting philosophy as for what I think, the role of drums are in music, but we'll get into that a little farther down the conversation. But basically what I did is I met Paul, and there were two other clinicians that had come in, and the first two of them, I went and I'm like, "Hi, I'm Bill. I am the drummer here. If I can be of assistance, I would love to play with you." And they're like, "Oh, no, we've got our tracks. We've got tracks to play along to." And so the third night I was like, "Well, hey Paul, how you doing? I'm Bill, and I've got a drum set, and if you want to play, I'm cool with it, but I'm sure you got your own tracks." He goes, "You know any Hendrix?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I know some Hendrix." He says, "Well, let's jam some Hendrix." And the first thing we ever played together was Red House, because that's a good, safe song to play. And we played it and we killed it, and he loved it. And then it was obvious that our playing sort of did this. He would start a thought and I would finish it. And he asked me, he's like, "Well, dang, dude, you're really good. I really enjoy your playing." And I was like, "Well, likewise here." And so I said, "Well, I know you're in LA, so you're probably gonna, be in LA, but I'm moving to Seattle." And he says, "Well, no, my wife and I are moving to Portland." And I was like, "Well, my wife and I are moving to Seattle." So we moved to Seattle, and he says, "Contact me when you get there." And so I did. In like March of 2016, I sent him an email, and he emailed me back, and he says, "Do you want to come down and record some tracks for me?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, when do we do it?" He says, "Well, next week." So I went down and I recorded 2 songs that ended up on his PG-30 Japanese album. It's like the best of, and I played on both opening tracks it's a 2 CD set, one with vocals and one without. So PG-30, I'm on both of the opening tracks of each CD. The first song is called the Endless Enigma. It's a ELP cover that we did, and his wife played keyboards on it, and Damian Erskine played bass on it. And the next one was a song called U-Turn Boogie that was this really kind of crazy, like fast shuffle, then it went into sort of a slower shuffle, then it went into a slow blues. It was just kind of like everything kept slowing down, and then he counted off, and it was a really cool song. But I didn't get credited for those 2 tracks because my name didn't make it to the art department in time to get on the CD. He had already had all the artwork done. And so a couple of years had passed, and I was like, well, darn, I maybe, that whole self-doubt thing kicked in. It's like, well, he probably had Thomas Lang come in and replace my tracks. And then, so I get this email one night at a gig I was doing here in Washington State. And the email was, "Can you do some dates on the East Coast with me?" This was last September. And of course I fired back, "Yeah, sure." And that was just like in a few weeks from where I was. It was early September. And so, he says, "Can you do some dates at the end of this month leading into October?" And I said, "Of course." And so he says, "Well, second question, can you come down to Portland and finish my album?" And I was like, "Yeah, when?" He says, "I need you here Sunday." And this was Friday night. Of course, I said, "Yeah, of course, absolutely." So I, made the arrangements, and I went down to Portland and finished the album. What had happened was the drummer that they were using, this guy in town, Brian Foxworth, he's the guy on the Blues for Rabbit video, just a tremendous player. Oh my gosh, he's so good. He was working a gig at night. He's a very busy drummer, so he was working at night, and he was coming to Paul's sessions in the day, and he just wore himself completely out. He was dehydrated and exhausted, and it's just from having to go all the time. And so that's what ended up happening as I went down and finished the album. And then I did the tour dates, and the beginning of this year, he sent me an email and said, "Would you be available for this tour that we have across the United States?" And of course, when Paul Gilbert asks a question like that, you your answer is usually going to be, yeah, oh yeah. So I answered, and so it's just been kind of rolling ever since. And so this entire year, I had no idea it was going to turn into, this, what it has. And it's just, it's kind of a testament to anybody who's doing a gig or playing with someone or doing something, keep at it. Just something, eventually your luck's gonna change somehow, because I've been, waiting a lot of years to find something like what I've got now, and playing with Paul. I mean, I know I'm not his last drummer, but I'm the drummer right now. And for me, that's just, it's huge, and it allows me a chance to build up my name and my resume and what I'm doing, and hone my skills, and of course, meeting people like you, that are patched in, because it's all, I asked Dennis Chambers, the drummer, he was with Santana, and he plays with everybody. He's just, one of the best drummers on the planet. I asked him when I was 21 years old, how do you get to the next level? And he says, oh man, there's no levels. It's all circles. And I was like, really? Yeah. So it's all circles. It's who you know. It's who you connect with, and can that person pick up the phone and call you and say, can you come do some dates and blah, blah, blah. And, that's really what it is. It's who are you connected to? It's the interpersonal relationships within music. They're very important. So that's why it's always good to be nice. It's always nice to be nice. People will remember nice.
You just made this album like a lot more meaningful, because now we look at this album as an audience and we're like, right, there is a bigger story than just the songs. There's a lot of things. One thing that led to another. So interesting.
Yeah, and that's the human element of it. That's what makes it cool. It's all human, and humanizes it rather than and there's no overdubs on that album at all. Everything you hear, there's no click track. The only time there was a click track was at the beginning of Let That Battery Die. That's the first song that they tracked. And because it was starting with piano, they had to have something in there. So they just started with a click, and then after that, they took the click out. Everything you hear is completely live. You should hear the stuff that didn't make it on the album. There was some takes that were just, oh man, oh, woo, they were amazing.
Will they be released?
What's that?
Will they be released?
Oh, probably not.
Yeah. So
there's so many iterations of that song. When we go on stage and play the tunes, I mean, every night is different, because the songs are kind of like they're like, if you think about it, they're like cartoon characters, like say Pikachu or something. So Having It, that song Having It is like a picture of Pikachu. And my job, if you're familiar with coloring books, like for kids, how they have a book and it's an outline. That's the job of the drummer, is to create the outline of the picture. I create the outlines in coloring books for people to scribble in their melodic color. And so that's what we end up doing every night, is I lay down the lines for, whatever song that we're doing, whatever picture we're playing at any given moment. And it allows for everybody else just to kind of like doodle and sketch and scribble within those parts. And that's the beauty of it, because every night is completely unique. When you come see Paul Gilbert on one night, it's not going to sound exactly like it did the night before. It'll always be a little different.
I'll believe so. Can I also ask, since we're on the album recording process, you did six songs that are credited to you. Can I ask, like, what's your writing process or approach, or was it just sit there and let's get on and give it a go, or how do you go about creating the drum tracks for Paul?
So what Paul did is he presented to us, he says, okay, he didn't let me hear any of the songs before I came down. And so I went into the studio and he says, okay, this is the song we're going to play. And he says, this is the beginning. And here, it's got this other little part. And he'd show us that. And then we kind of rehearse the two. We take, this part, and we, kind of work on sticking it together. Okay, it needs to have like a drum fill come from here to here. Excuse me. And as a drummer, my job, and with my experience, drum fills are kind of like glue. You put drum fills in to mark the end of a passage. It's almost like a capital letter and like a punctuation mark at the end of a sentence. So like a question mark would be like a drum fill does what a question mark does in a sentence. It kind of puts a connector to the next part of the dialogue that's being laid down. So we basically would just put everything together and see how it connected, and then we'd run the tune with the recorder going, of course, because you don't want to lose anything. I mean, there might be something magical that happens that very first go through, and you want that to be caught if it does. So we would just kind of play it. Go ahead.
Each song probably has quite a few takes, I would assume.
Oh yeah, there was at least 10 takes per song.
I see.
Paul's process, as many times as I've worked with him in the studio, which has been twice now, the 2 times that we've done it, his process is to keep playing it until he feels like it's gone up the hill, and then he feels like it's peaked, and then when it feels like it starts to go downhill, then he's like, okay, I think we've got it now. When it feels like, it's sort of like repeating itself, or it's, like it starts to maybe lose something, like, I wouldn't say attention span, but at some point, maybe, with anything, you do it, enough times, it's going to become tedious in a sense. And when he feels that slight shade of tedium start to set in, then he's like, okay, it's good now. That's what we want right there. And so that's my experience with him, is we just keep playing it over and over until we get the thing that we want. And, some takes that I did were pretty much, I was like, oh man, I love what I played there. But then the take that was like the overall best, that captured everybody's greatest little thing, it might not have been the take that I preferred, but it was one that, was an aggregate sort of, like, okay, everything fit well, everything worked well, and it's got the most fire and the most passion. So that's the take we're going to use right there. And so that's what that's kind of how we went about it, is to play, until things sort of fall apart. And then that's Paul Gilbert's process, at least for this particular band.
So there isn't anything like very structured or very demanding. I need this part to be in this particular groove, or that part to be a specific thing. It's all impromptu.
Well, with certain parts, like the Blues for Rabbit Shuffle, I didn't play on that track, but just as a general rule, that rhythm he's playing, he's playing like I don't know if you can hear that through I'm using my speaker here, but just that rhythm right there works within that song. So if we're playing a shuffle, then we need to keep it in that vein. And then there's only so many drum fills that work within that particular flow, that rhythmic flow. So I don't want to put anything too obtuse within it, or that's going to drag somebody's ear away from hearing the flow. That's, we as musicians, our job is we're kind of like, we're energy brokers. We take sound, we take thought, and it turns into neural impulses, and it comes down our arms and ends up out our fingers and appendages, and we turn that thought into sound. And so the idea is to play things that are congruent with each other. And so, being that I played in a million blues bands over my lifetime, because blues bands are like the hot dog of music. It's just, you can go to a blues jam anywhere in the world and you're going to find jazz guys, rock guys, blues guys, country people, and any number of genres of music, and you'll be able to connect with other players at blues jams. That's a little known fact. And it's a place, it's all pentatonic, and it's, some people might find pentatonic kind of boring, but I'll tell you what, when you start throwing in mixolydian other odd chord, voicings within blues, you're going to find out real quick that some of that stuff doesn't really work.
we have this club here. It's called Crazy Elephant, and every Sunday, like musicians from all over Singapore will gather, and they will just play the blues out of the whole night. So yeah, I get what you're saying. Blues is like hot dogs.
It's just parts. It's just, it's all the parts of everything that get mixed up into, or a more appealing and appetizing. It's like a big stew. It's a big stew pot full of you got some chicken and you got some seafood and you got some beef and all these different types of vegetables and stuff all thrown together and put together right and with the right bass. If you've got the club that has a good sound system and the instruments are all good and everything sounds and feels good, well, you got a nice pot of stew there.
I like the way how you describe playing music, like cooking, like food, like cartoons. It's very interesting to listen to you talk.
Well, thank you. Well, you have to think outside the box in a way, and there's so many correlations between music and, well, music is food in a way. If you eat the same kind of music, or if you listen to the same kind of music every single day, eventually it's going to get a little old. You're going to be like, wow, I've listened to Master of Puppets now for the 60,000th time, and I know every note and every breath. I can hear it when Lars, breaks wind. I can hear Lars farting. So at some point you want to listen to something different and to get inspired by something. So yeah, music is definitely right on point with being a food-like substance, and the more the broader your palate, it's just going to make it more interesting for you and everyone else.
Well, I guess you're going to experience a lot of Asian food in this next coming tour.
Well, I lived in Taipei, Taiwan for some months. I was there back in 1993. I was doing a gig at a club called Club Absolute. And we got over there, and the band that I came over with, they wanted to play Brazilian jazz, but the people, all they wanted to hear was Michael Jackson and UB40 and things like that. And so thus began the big debacle. Do we stand by our original sound, or do we come in and give people what they want? And it was a big kind of like debate within the band. They had called me up, their drummer that was going to do the gig. He couldn't do it at the last minute. So I was forced into like this environment with these other three people who I'd never met in my life. And now I have to go in and be a professional. And one of the big debates was like, okay, do we still play Brazilian jazz? Of course we play Brazilian jazz, but you know what? We need to learn Michael Jackson, UB40, and all these other songs, and we've got to do this, because if we don't play this music for people, they're going to get up and leave, and the club's not going to make any money, and they're going to think that they're terrible. So it was one of those things where you have to read the crowd and give them what they want. So and we were there for 4 months, and it would be very uncomfortable if we were if we weren't able to meet the expectations of who came in to listen. So yeah.
So while you're there, did you manage to learn how to speak Mandarin? Ni hao,
ni hao ma. I know most of my Mandarin has gone away, but it's kind of funny when I listen to people speak Mandarin, I understand them more than any other language. I was in St. Petersburg, Russia this past tour, and I was in the elevator, and Chinese people are typically very reserved, and they kind of are keeping themselves. But the lady next to me looked at me and she says, "Ni hao," and I said, "Ni hao, ni na," and they were so just taken aback that I was able to speak very a small amount, but it forged a connection, and they appreciated it, and that's with any language really. It's just learning just little bits and pieces of it. And now with the Google Translate and all that. I mean, you can literally point your phone at something and it comes back, it shows you in your native language what it is that you're reading. And who'd have thought that? I mean, if that had been around 30 years ago, oh my gosh, it would have simplified my life so much. Because I remember trying to find a bathroom one night and getting thrown out of some lady's shop because she thought I was going to pee in her corner. I didn't know how to ask, so I had to, act out what I wanted to do. I need to go to the bathroom, and she's like, "What was on?" And I said, "I don't understand." I'm like, so I mimic, unzipping my pants and relieving myself, and she comes at me with a broom. It was funny. It was really funny, but it was kind of scary at the time. So, anyways, another shopkeeper saw my plight and says, "Come in here. You can use my." Saved me. Woo, you got to go.
What a story! I have a few more questions here. They are mainly drum questions from either my drum teachers or our students. So the first one is that my drum teacher noticed that you seems to use more of the traditional grip over the matched grip. Do you have a reason why you prefer the traditional grip over the matched grip? Because that is like match is more of the common thing that you see on the drummer, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let me see. Do I have my pad somewhere? I don't need my pad. Yeah, I started out playing drums traditional grip when I started playing when I was a year old. My father was a drummer, and my grandfather was a trombone player. My uncle was a world famous Dixieland jazz musician. Matter of fact, I think he has a hotel suite named after him there in Singapore. His name was Pud Brown, and he was a clarinet player in New Orleans, and he's a Dixieland guy. Spelled P-U-D and then Brown, B-R-O-W-N. Albert Francis was his real name. Albert Francis Pud Brown. But he went by Pud Brown. That was his professional name. And so that's pretty much my lineage. And where I got the start from traditional grip was back in the late 60s, early 70s. That was what my father played because he was a jazz drummer. And of course, being that I was trying to, learn, I would mimic my father's playing. And it just became part of the grip that I used. And then what happened, I was really big into Kiss for a long time, and I realized that I could switch over to match grip, the standard normal, match grip like this, and it was a lot easier for me. And then as I went through my developmental phase as a player, I went back to traditional grip, and then I would go back to matched and traditional and matched, and just over the years, I kind of flip back and forth, and right now I'm in a traditional vein, and I think I'll probably stay here because I've developed the grip so much more, and it just feels very comfortable to me. One of the things as far as being a drum teacher, I teach at Seattle Drum School, and here kind of near my house in Seattle. When people come to me and want to learn the traditional grip, I ask them, why do you want to learn traditional grip? What's the purpose? Is it required by your drumline instructor or something? And they're like, no, I just want to learn it. Well, the thing is that when you play traditional grip, you've got to learn a whole different system of how to hold the stick. When you play match grip, you're learning one system and you just make it symmetrical. So learning traditional grip it's a lost art in a sense, and I'm happy to do it. I love playing that way because it feels really good to me, and that's really why I do it. And the funny thing is I get a lot of people who will come up to me after a show and say, "You're the first drummer in a long time that I see that plays the correct way." Well, there really is no correct way of playing. I mean, playing traditional grip, it doesn't make me any better of a drummer than somebody who plays strictly match grip. It's really what makes somebody a better drummer is right in here. How well can you, express yourself on your instrument, and how do you, integrate with music that you're playing? Because we've all heard the guy who has all the million, chops and technical abilities, and you go sit down and play a gig with them, and you can't. It feels just horrible because all they're doing is chopping out, and they're not paying attention to the real reason that we're all there, and that's to play the music. It's, you know, they're just over there playing a million notes a minute, and unless you're in Paul Gilbert's band, even in Paul Gilbert's band, you know, we all have to like sort of dial it back in places, because when you've got everybody playing a million notes a minute, and if you listen to that band, you know that everybody in that band is capable of that, you know. But so it's just a matter of stepping back and, you know, letting others speak, so to, you know, and then, you know, relaxing, and then when you hear something that you can jump in on and grab, and hey, let me add to this right here. Then, you know, like a lot of times Paul and I will just kind of go off on a thing, and I'll start, you know, playing along with him, and then he looks over at me and is like, oh yeah, and then he and I are like spiraling off, and the rest of the band's just like, okay, we're just going to sit here and hold this down while they're doing their thing, and, you know, and then Paul will do the same thing with the keyboard player at some point, and so I'll sit down and, you know, relax and hold it back for them. And it, like I said, it's conversational. Music's not a competition, it's a conversation. So yeah,
I can witness that for myself. Okay, so just before we move on, so is there any benefit for anyone to say, maybe I should try traditional grip if, let's say, they have started off with the match grip?
Yeah, you know, it's just personal growth, personal development. If that's something that you envision yourself doing and you'd like to see yourself doing it, yeah. One of the things about traditional grip is this. Let me just show you this from a drummer standpoint. When you're playing drums, these are like, the right hand is making a counterclockwise oval, an ellipse. Can you see that? The motion I'm making? It's like, and then when you're playing left hand, it's a clockwise ellipse like this. So those are the energy patterns that you flow within with match grip. With traditional grip, it's like taking a grinding wheel and doing it counterclockwise like this. So it's, to me, you see the way I'm pulling in like this right here at the bottom of the stroke? Yeah, so what happens is like going back to the concept that we're energy brokers, this is pulling energy towards me right here. So for me, from an energy standpoint, I like traditional grip because it pulls energy towards me, and whereas this right here is more of like it holds the energy, you know, in a sideways manner. I like this because it's pulling energy towards me, and it's also pushing energy out like that. And, you know, hence the guy coming up, people who play drums, like the old guys, will come up and say, "You're the first person I've seen who's played drums correctly for so long." It's like, well, you know, that reaches somebody on a different level. And that's what music's all about, is reaching people on different levels. You know, you reach them orally, you reach them visually, musically. You might trigger a memory within their past that makes them feel good or feel bad, or, you know, that's what music's good for. It's an emotional thing.
Am I right to say that you're also the only guy that played traditional grip with Paul?
You know, I think Thomas Lang plays traditional grip. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he's a trad guy. I think I'm probably, it'd be safer to say that I'm the only guy that plays single bass drum with Paul. I play one kick drum, yeah. And, you know, I don't have a real monster drum set. I think I'm probably the most compact drummer that he's had, you know, as far as, you know, people that have played on his albums and stuff. I've seen other videos with guys that show up with, you know, like a lot of kids nowadays, and I say kids loosely because I'm 50 years old, but a lot of younger drummers these days are losing this rack tom and just, you know, using a snare drum and cymbals and a floor tom, which is really kind of cool. It's nice to see that happening, but I have to have more of the traditional instrument for myself because that's what I grew up with and that's what I learned on, and it's what I'm comfortable. It's the environment that I'm comfortable within. So, yeah, that would be a better descriptor. I'm the only drummer that plays single kick with Paul.
All right. can you? This next question is from again my drum teacher.
Okay.
He says, which rudiment is your favorite to use?
Which rudiment is my favorite? Well, rudiments to me are like letters in an alphabet. They all have different sounds and they all have different applications. I think probably the one rudiment that I go to most of the time is probably going to be paradiddles and any one of their combinations, because a paradiddle is basically a para single strokes, so right left and then right right. It's a diddle, so paradiddle, 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 and then you can add flams to that, and in the beginnings and ends or wherever throughout the line. Rhythm is just points on a line. It's basically like, you know, if you look at a ruler, a 1 inch, 1 inch, that's how music is, because you've got quarter inches, you've got 1/8 inches, 16th inches, 32nd inches. It's a point of measurement, and so basically rhythm is just points on the line. And my cat's going nuts up there. But hang on, let me open the door for her because she's gonna yell.
Okay.
You can make an appearance too. Come here, silly. What are you yelling about? Come on. Ay.
We have 2 cats here. I understand what's going on.
I have a deaf cat. She's deaf and she's the perfect drummer cat.
Yeah.
There she is. Yeah. There
Very
she
nice
is.
Cat.
Yeah, that's Ripley. Hi.
Very cool cat.
This is her playground. She lives in this room. She sleeps under this drum set. She loves it when I play because she feels it and hears it, and she can't hear it, but the vibrations really, make her happy. And she'll come jump in my lap in the middle of a rehearsal sometimes. I've got bands over here, and everybody gets kicked out of that. But paradiddles are my most probably the favorite rudiment that I use, because there's so many ways you can use them. They turn the beat around. And the funny thing is that Paul and I got into this really long discussion about mechanics. Like, one of the things about Paul's playing, he does a lot of upstrokes. His picking style is all upstroke. I don't know if you knew that about him or not. But and then the thing that he's been talking about on his videos is tapping your foot, when you're playing, because when you tap the foot, it makes you think about your strokes and where you're putting things. So if you're going, 1, 2, 3, 4, going upstroke, that's a different motion than going 1, 2, 3, 4 downstroke. So you can go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 or go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and see, there's the downstroke. And with paradiddles, it's a hand-to-hand thing. So if I'm going, if I'm playing like a train beat, that's a straight paradiddle right there. If I invert it, if I go right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, left, like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. You hear that? So
yeah,
I'm playing 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and I'm starting on the double, and it switches hands instead of me going 1. See, it stays on one hand if I'm just doing single strokes. This hand becomes the actuator. So if I'm going, see that? It's going every other. And that gives me something, a little more expansive to play with in my mind, and it allows me more flexibility. And because the paradiddle allows everything to slow down a little bit, it makes things relax for me, because I don't have to think about, playing too fast. When you trying to play too many notes at one time, if you think about consolidating all those notes into a smaller package. Did you ever play with Legos? Legos. Yeah. If you want to make a wall, you don't take those little single Legos, like, one Lego thing, and you make boing, 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 like that. That's just going to make the wall's not going to be strong. You take one of those 4 bricks or the 6 bricks and you put it in there, and it's all one contiguous piece. So when you're playing a riff, if you consolidate all of those notes into one, like, contiguous piece, like a like that, some sort of motion, consolidate those notes into that one motion, then you don't have to think about all the individual pieces. You just think about that motion, and that allows you the ability to, okay, I got to do that motion to get those notes out right there. And so you play that motion, and it gets all those notes out, and it lets your brain relax and think about other things that you want to do. So that applies to any instrument, really. It's just how you conceptualize the things that you're playing. And so thinking about the mechanics of what you're playing, the physical connecting with the mental, and then the tonal and harmonic, those are other areas right there that guitar players and other instrumentalists have to think about. I don't have to think about, tonality and harmonics as much, because I'm thinking about the structure of the music. I'm like the architect, I'm the guy who draws lines in the coloring book. I'm the person who presents the architectural plans. And here's everything you're going to do, like my drum tracks that are available, made to you. Like here's the plans for a building. You can go in here and you can write things around these, and everybody who writes a song to one of those drum tracks is going to sound completely different, as per who wrote it and sent it to me. Like I'll have one drum track, there'll be like, 20 different people wrote 20 different things to it. And it's like me giving a set of architectural plans to 20 different contractors saying, here, build a structure with this. And one guy's going to build a brick building. Somebody else is going to build a house out of stucco. Someone else is going to build something out of, shipping containers or whatever. It'll all be different iterations of the same idea. Floor plans,
yeah. Blueprints.
Floor plans, yeah.
All right. Let's move on to, I have 2 more questions, just 2 more questions. This one, I think you pretty much said it over a few times already, but it says, any advice to be a great drummer like you for our students? I think I think the first point would be, number 1, never give up. Too many expectations, as far as like, I'm going to go make $1 million in music, because it doesn't really happen that way. It's one of those things. It's a slow climb. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. And so do it for the love. And if you keep doing it for the love, then over time, you're going to see other players come and go. They're going to, you'll see people fall off. And then, I've been doing this now professionally for over 35 years. And some of the people that I know, that I first started playing with, some of them are still playing, and some of them gave it up a long time ago, but I'm still doing it because I feel like I have to. If I don't, it's one of those things where I don't know what else to do. I mean, what am I going to do? Go get a job at Disneyland or something? I mean, I've done that actually, but go get a job at the grocery store. I just really don't know that would feed my soul, so there's that bit of advice. The other advice is to learn as many musical styles as you can, and learn to read music. Standard notation. If you're a guitar player, learning the tablature is cool. If you're a drummer, learning drum tab is a waste of time. Don't even mess with it. Just because I can't give a sheet of drum tab to another instrumentalist and say, here, play this. They're going to look at it and go, what are all these X's and O's and dashes? It doesn't make any sense to them. So if you learn standardized notation, quarter and 8/16 16th notes and all that, then that's going to make it easy for you to play. Like if I go on a gig and there's no drum chart, I'll say, is there a lead trumpet chart? They'll say, yeah, there is actually. They give me the lead trumpet chart, and that's got all the big hits and stuff on there. And the form of the music, it's going to show me everywhere I need to be. So lead trumpet chart is what I'll always ask for if there's no drum chart, or a lead sheet of any kind would work.
And that way it gets you on the same page. It allows everyone to communicate. The one word for musicians that I always try to teach and tell people to adhere to is, if music could be boiled down to one thing, it's congruence. If you can be congruent with other players, if you can be congruent with the environment that you're playing in, and congruent with the music, if you can get those areas covered, then people will definitely call you back, because they're going to say, this person listens to everybody in the band. They don't try to, play all their stuff at one time. They listen and just, put down what needs to be there. And they're not playing so loud that it's blowing everybody out the club. Everybody's, dialed in to that. And then if you can be congruent within that arena, then you will get called back for work, and just do it for the love of it. What's that?
That's how you land the gig.
Yeah, it is. And I tell my drum students, I say, all this stuff right here, this isn't my instrument. These just happen to be underneath my real instrument, which are my sticks. If you can play the sticks and make the sticks sound good, then anything else you touch is going to sound okay. And that's where it comes from for me, is I teach people how to play drumsticks. And then once they learn how to play drumsticks, then we apply it to an instrument and, work that out. And it, so it starts from the sticks out. And the same thing, with guitar, it could be said that, your instrument is really your finger motions and movements and your picking. And so how does that relate to like a metronome? So one of the things I notice about guitar players is that they get tied up in the harmony and the melody, and they forget about the rhythm part. And that's like the most important part of it all is rhythm, because that's the vehicle that carries everything. And so me being a drummer, if I'm playing with somebody who has lesser rhythm skills, I'm going to play simpler, which is basically like taking a big, thick marker and drawing thick, dark lines rather than taking a pencil and sketching little, small, tiny details like with somebody who has good rhythmic skills to begin with. It's just, that's my job, is to be able to determine who I'm playing with and what can they handle, and like I said, if I'm going to play with somebody who's, just got, their limited rhythmic skills, then my playing is going to simplify a lot in order to accommodate. And that's what's called being professional. So, yeah.
If ever one day you're going to come up with a book, you're going to name it The Coloring Book.
The Coloring
I like the concept of being like drawing the lines and let people fill in what's inside, and your thick marker dotted line thing. I like that.
I have to tell you, one time I had a gig in a restaurant. Now the place where I learned to play super quiet, where I got my dynamics together, was working in a restaurant where the chef was a complete monster. If you got too loud, he was a nice guy, but if you got too loud, he would come out with a cleaver and he'd start screaming at you, wagging a cleaver, and he'd tell you he's going to cut your pay, he's going to cut you off at the salad bar. Now, the salad bar at this place, it wasn't like a regular salad bar. It had like steak and chicken and all this, and we were allowed to eat there. And we got paid more than any other musicians in town for playing this club. It was like $200 a night. So we made $1,000 a week, which is a really good wage for a musician. 5 nights a week, playing, and getting fed at the salad bar. So, you didn't have to spend money on dinner. We were living great. But the only caveat was you had to play super quiet, and it was a really boring room. And boring because it was very dark. Now, he had these paintings on the wall. He had like different art on different walls, and some of the art was abstract and some of it was, cubist and all that. And some nights I'd be so bored out of my skull, playing, just thinking, okay, another hour, I'll be out of here. I'll be in my car riding home. I need to like give myself a challenge. So I would get inside the painting and I would start playing the painting. I connected my lines that I was playing with the lines in the painting. So when it came time for me to do a drum solo, which was like, it was a jazz gig, so I would get a lot of drum solos. I would jump in and play the painting. And it was a really interesting concept. And so I began that's when I began seeing music, as like color and art and stuff like that. Yeah, so I began to think outside of the box and to bridge my senses. And so now with that being said, I can go into a situation and draw inspiration, for anything. And I hear a lot with my eyes. Hear with your eyes is another good thing to think about. Pay attention.
Bro, as in you observe the other musicians.
Yes. Oh yeah. If you watch me when I'm playing, I don't ever take my eye off of Paul. I'm laser focused on him because I'm reading his mind.
I'll try to distract you when you come Singapore.
Oh, you won't. No, nobody can distract me. There could be a girl out in the front going this, and I'm like, oh. Nope, I'm over here. Hi.
Gotta get the job
It's
done
happened.
first.
What's that?
You gotta get the job done first.
That's why we're there. We're there to play music. And where I set up on the stage, I'm on stage. I'm at the very front of the stage, to the audience's right. So I'm to Paul's left, and I'm not in the back. So I'm very close to the audience. In some cases, I can reach down and do fist bumps with them, and people try to distract me like that, but I a lot of times I don't even look. At this point, I don't even see, because all my attention's like right there, focused on Paul, and that's how I'm able to connect with him. And one of the things that came from was playing with Ike Turner, because if I wasn't paying attention to Ike Turner and he would see me looking away or something, it would cost me money out of my paycheck, because he'd say, "Man, you weren't paying attention, so I'm going to hit you $50." Where do you think James Brown got it? James Brown learned the Dawkins band from Ike Turner, and so that's where that was my university that I went to, as I had to, make him feel good. But overall, he was an interesting guy, and I'm glad for that experience, because it gave me the tools to be able to, do what I'm doing right now, and it's made my life a lot better. Certainly more interesting.
Is your cat meowing again?
What's that?
Your cat is calling for you again.
Oh, let me let her out. Hang on. Good Lord, you are just... Go. Bye. I can't leave the door shut. She wants to have in and out privileges. She's a funny one.
We have a cat here. We have two cats, right? We have one cat that does exactly the same thing. You open her to let her in, then the next moment she wants to get out. Exactly the same thing.
They're funny.
Yeah. So from your description, this setup, the stage setup will be very, I would say, unconventional, like, because you're sitting on the far right of the stage or left of the stage by a side, whereby typically a drummer sits right in the middle at the back of the stage. So does it have a benefit to do so? Because as at our music school, we run recitals, and we have been putting our poor drummer at the back of the stage, and often or not, we thought that is the best position to position a drummer. Is it like your position? Will it be a better position to position a drummer?
For what we do, yes, because when we're playing, my goal is to have a line of sight with Paul and everyone else on the stage at any given time. So where I'm sitting, I'm looking directly across the stage at all four of the musicians. Like, I can see Asher, he's on the other side opposite me. He's the keyboard player. I can see Asher. I've got perfect line of sight with him. Roland, the bass player, he's just right behind Paul over here, and then Paul is, closest to me, and so I can see Paul just, and when I'm on a riser, when I'm up on a riser up high, it allows me to have eye-to-eye contact with him, and he also hears me a little better, because he's got hearing issues. He's had he over the years he's lost a lot of his hearing from rock and roll, and so having him there, it's like we feel each other a lot better. Now, the other added benefit to that is sometimes we have opening acts that show up, and because of our situation, the way we set up, instead of having to take my drums and move them or strike them, which is not going to happen because I like to get set up and leave it. I don't like to mess. I don't want to have to set up twice. It's just a pain. What we do, it's easier just to take the guitar amplifiers, push them back to the back wall, and then have the other band set up in a conventional manner, in front. So my drums are off to the side, and then the opening act's drums are, in the front, and they set up. It's usually like a trio or a 4-piece band. So they'll set up around our gear in a conventional manner. And then once their stuff comes off the stage, then, we're ready to go. We don't have to worry about, changing much at all. So our stage setup actually it's functional and it's a cool looking, it's a cool look, like not a lot of drummers set up on the side of the stage like that. So people enjoy it because they get to see, what drummers do. And once again, from my side of the fence, I've got like the dozen or so drummers out there who get to, make notes and critique me, and they can see all my mistakes.
They're gonna be like a judging panel.
Exactly. They're all gonna, I'm gonna get judged here. All right. So, but that's okay. I mean, I'd rather be talked about than not talked about. Oh, that guy sucks. Okay, hey, thanks. The cool thing is I get to get on the bus at the end of the night and we get to go laugh about it.
That's very cool. Brings me to my last question with you.
Yeah.
So we know that the Asia tour has not started yet, and we are all, I guess, very excited about it. So is there anything that you think like we should look forward to, maybe like in terms of set list or gears or special acts or anything?
Well, I know that what you're going to see on stage will be a fresh thing every single night, in the fact that, yes, we will be doing the same set list, every single night at shows. But as I said earlier, no two songs are going to sound alike every night, but there'll be certain parts that are there, but, like the opening act, the opening songs, the two, Blues for Rabbit and Having It. We just get right into Having It right at the beginning, and if you know that song, that's like the big jam, and that song plays different every single night. It's always an adventure, So I think that you're gonna, every show that we do, it'll be unique in its own right, and as far as any new kind of gear, whatever Paul's bringing. I don't know that I'm bringing really anything new and inventive. Maybe some new cymbals that I get from Sabian, but I'm thinking about, I need to talk to them and see what they're willing to, send out to me, or if they want me to promote any specific thing. I'm a Sabian artist, so, I get, I need to get with my artist rep and see what he wants me to take over there to expose, people to, because that's part of what we do as musicians is, on this level, when you get an endorsement, the gear company might have some new stuff that they want you to go out and show up with. So it makes people, interested in it. Like, hey, these cymbals, this new cymbal line right here is on tour with, Bill Ray and Paul Gilbert, and you can hear them at this venue. So I think one of the things that people, I should say, is that, Paul does the VIP experience, and what that does is it gets people into the show at sound check, and they get to hang out with the band, and they get to hang out with Paul and get on stage and take a guitar lesson with him and play his guitar and take pictures and get autographs and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things about Paul is that, the VIP experience is a really good thing to do if you really want to connect with him, because after the show, usually what he does is he gets on the phone with his wife and kid, and they end up being on the phone for like an hour or something, because he's a family guy now, and so people they always come up to me or one of the other band members and say, hey, can you get Paul to sign this? And at some point I have to say no, because I don't want to, every time Paul sees me coming on the bus, I don't want him to go shut the door. Oh no, he's waiting for stuff for me to sign. And so the VIP thing, it's certainly worth the extra outlay, because it's you get a more intimate side of the band, and it's a fun thing. The sound checks are always fun. We always have a good time, and everybody gets to make pictures with Paul and hang out with him, and it's just I recommend doing that if you really absolutely got to get something signed, and you want your guitar signed or your stack of albums this big signed. Yeah, do it like that. That's really what I would do. And our tour manager Andy is one of the greatest tour managers I've ever worked with. He's a super cool guy. What was it? A couple of tips. If you're recording in an audience with your phone, make sure that the light on the phone is off. Otherwise, Andy will come out with a flashlight and start, brightening you, like shine it into your phone, so it cuts the light. He'll shut you down for that. But usually, Paul doesn't care if somebody's recording, as long as it's not interfering with, what he's doing on his job. So
get distracting. I get it.
That phone light's distracting. Or we were in Germany and some guy had a lens on his camera like this long, and he kept shoving it up in Paul's face. And like Paul would be playing, and here's this lens that's like sneaking up on him, and finally Paul just grabbed the camera out of the guy's hand and used his camera lens as a slide for his guitar, and then handed him back his camera as if to say, please don't do that anymore.
You got it served.
I gotta say, I've never seen Paul angry at any. I've never seen him angry. I've never seen him rattled. He is truly the nicest person on the planet. And you just got to meet him to believe it. I mean, he's just really that nice. He's a really cool guy.
I bought the VIP ticket, so I can't wait to meet him in person. And from what I know from our country, if I'm not wrong, we are completely sold out on the VIP tickets, but I'm not too sure about the rest of the Asia country. But I'm pretty sure they're selling out like hotcakes.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. I can't wait. I know that. I've been hearing some tales that the Asian shows were going to be really, really full, and when I played in Asia, the audiences there are just so enthusiastic, and everybody's just really into it. I mean, it's a whole different level of engagement from what I remember, and I've got to say, what a great end of the year for us is to come over and play for you guys over there, man. I mean, it's a different culture. And I'm just thrilled. I can't wait. Like I said, I lived in Taipei for a while, and I really enjoyed living in the different culture. I grew up in Jackson, Mississippi, and then I moved to California when I was 20 and lived there for 26 years, and now I'm in Seattle. So I've been all over the United States, but getting to live outside the country for a little while, and go live on a tour bus outside the country for a minute it's always fun, and it's always very invigorating for me.
Getting to see the world, right?
Yeah, getting to see the world. That's the cool thing about music, man. It's just it's taken me to a lot of countries, and one of these days I'm going to sit down and plot out all the places I've ever been on a map, and I haven't yet done that, but I really ought to.
The wall behind you could be a map.
It could be. I should. My wife keeps telling me, put your advertising stuff up here. Advertise there, and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I should. I'm a little slow to the game, as they say, but for years, being a working drummer, I didn't pay attention to what I was doing. I just would show up and do gigs and studio dates and all that. And turns out one day my friend who's a producer says, you've played on over 150 albums. And I was like, really? He says, yeah. It is for 10 years. We used to do 2 albums a month at my place. And I was at his house all the time recording. And, he lived near San Diego State University in San Diego. And I was always at his house recording. So he says, you played on over 150 albums, if not more. And that kind of blew my mind, because I've just had my head pressed to the grindstone all these years, and I didn't really pay attention to things. I was just all about keeping working. But yeah, every so often it's good to look up and take inventory of what you've done and enjoy it. Enjoy what you've done, and not to say rest on your laurels, but I like, one thing I should mention, that I played on a Grammy-winning record with Ike Turner, but I'm just now at the very end of the interview mentioning that, because that was just so long ago, and it's not insignificant by any means. It's just it's not what I choose to focus myself upon, at this point. So yeah,
I think everything that you're trying to say today, right, is all very inspiring to all the fellow drummers and musicians all alike. So I have just one last question. This is a little tricky to answer, I believe. So you have a few, the tour is going to bring you to first my country, Singapore, and then Japan, Indonesia, Korea, Thailand, and China. 6 countries, right? So the trick question here is, which one do you look forward most towards?
I look forward to them all, to tell you the truth. I mean, every country is going to be different. As far as the gear, because we're flying every place. We're not taking our own gear. Well, I'll take cymbals and a snare drum, but we're flying everywhere else, and just showing up and having the new, it's like playing golf. I'll have my stuff clubbed, and then I'll come into the golf course, and it's like, okay, this right here is a little different here, and this is different there, and of course everything I need will be there when I get there. And some of the instruments are great. Sometimes a couple of the fly dates that we had on this past tour, the gear was, I had to fool with it a little bit to make it sound good, but eventually I got good sound out of it. And that's the real challenge, is to present that consistent element, of how we sound as a band, to be able to be comfortable in my own element, to make the band sound like it does. That's my challenge overall. So go wherever we are, I always look forward to being there, but I certainly look forward to coming to Singapore and hanging out with you. So there's that.
I can't wait to treat you to lunch, man. Okay,
oh man, that'd be great.
Thank you for your time today. So I think we gotta cut the interview here, and like you, look forward to see you here, and Paul and everyone, with a good show.
Yeah, thanks, Benny. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you for having the interview with us here. Thank you.
Okay, well, you take care now, you guys. Have a good one.